Alright, so just doing a quick check-in. Like I said, I'm doing kind of a little speed ranked run, not really putting too much on it, but we are up to 9-1. We got our platinum rank here and working our way up. And I got an interesting game that was has started off. It's a KGF. I don't know this player offhand, but a KGF. We're just only in round 2, so this is just it's an interesting start that I thought I would just kind of show, and it was using the UK twist. The other thing I should note with this season, what I'm doing is I'm making every Russia 1 be the 3 artillery 2 tank build, because I'm just curious to see how it plays out. It's definitely got, if you see my other video, I talked about the build a little bit. It's definitely got a better versus that G1 tank build and the R2 Ukraine strafe, but then the biggest concern is when you have a not so good R1, you're even weaker because you're one less unit on the board to start the game with. But in any case, so this game, my R1 was below average, so it allowed him to get a G2 Karelia stack, as you're going to see here. So my R1, I had 4 infantry survive West Russia, and I believe it was 1, maybe 2 tanks survived Ukraine. I can't remember exactly. It definitely was not 3 tanks or more. I know that. It was either 1 or 2 tanks that survived, and 4 infantry in West Russia. So Germany has gotten a decent start. He's been building 1 tank on G1 and 1 tank on G2. I'm not really sure, since he had Karelia, I don't really know why he needed the G1 and G2, because he's able to, stack Karelia on G1. I think I said G2, but he's able to stack Karelia on G1. So I'm not really sure what the purposes of building the tanks are if you're only going to do 1 a turn, because they're not really going to help speed up the pressure. I'm already, first turn I had to get a UK fighter in here as well. So, in any case, I'm not really sure. Now I can hold West Russia without the UK fighter, and as you can see, I decided to go just with 1 transport so far, which is a little less than I'd like. I'll build some more on UK 3 is the plan, but I just decided to go ahead and do the Norway, Finland, and protect the US transport rather than sacrificing it. Pros, cons, but at the end of the line, it was because of what I wanted to build on UK 2, which was 3 infantry, a fighter, and a bomber. Because the UK twist, the interesting part was he did not take TJ, he failed TJ with the battleship attack on G1. So I went ahead and sacrificed my carrier, which everybody knows I really like my carrier in the Indian Ocean. I sacrificed my carrier to go ahead and kill the battleship on G1 because I was able to let the bomber land and it was going to be able to live. So I sacrificed the carrier after all on UK1, which is abnormal for me, but it's now led to this situation where I built another fighter and a second bomber, and with his positioning on J1, focusing on 61, now he did consolidate, so he did 6 fighters and a bomber, even though he did not kill the cruiser, because I sacrificed the carrier. If I had sacrificed the carrier, I may have been able to do a 2 carrier build, or excuse me, a 1 carrier with my other carrier and a fighter build, the destroyer, and stack season 35 and try to KJF. He did not do Pearl, so he's got all 6 of his fighters on board. He did a 3 transport buy. I debated back and forth on KJF, KGF, KJF, KGF, and I really wasn't sure which way I wanted to go. I decided to try a KGF, but with a little twist here with my US, just for the heck of it, because I foresaw that UK2 I was going to set this little doohickey up where I can threaten DEI, and I can threaten a US2 Borneo attack here. And he had too much pressure because with my UK twist, my cruiser was over here, and my sub was in 37, but I didn't have enough. I could come into 45 safely and protect it versus 4 fighters, a bomber, and a sub. I did go ahead and use the 1 US fighter down here, as you can see, like I'm doing. But obviously these 2 fighters cannot reach India. The sole purpose of this is, yes, it may delay me and slow me down over here, but he did not build a bomber, so I'm feeling pretty good about that, is to see if I can just slow down Japan and then get these guys over to the Atlantic Ocean. But now we're starting to face a situation where, okay, I started thinking about this. What does Japan do in this turn? The reason I built these guys is theoretically he could send 2 fighters to 32 and then move his fleet into 35 and potentially kill these guys and strand these guys. But my 4 fighter, 2 bomber, 2 subs, that's 8 units facing 2 battleships, 3, 4, 5, 6 fighters, because he could fly fighters to refill even if I killed the fighter. So he have 6 units, so 8 units versus 6 units with 2 battleships in there. It's slightly favored for me. And that's probably a shot I would go ahead and take, and then maybe even if his battleships are out there and I'm sinking his battleships, I'd build a U.S. fleet on U.S. 3, and I've already got part of a fleet here already that we could switch this into a KJF if you went for something like that. Secondly, C-Zone 36, he's got 1 unit advantage over me with everything here. Oh, yeah, back on 35, he could send a destroyer to kill this sub, but that'd just be weakening his defense by 1 and weakening my attack by 1, and I'd still have a sub with no destroyer there, which would slightly improve my odds, actually. So that's not really an option. He could go to 36, but I've got enough air here with my ground, and since I was able to hold Burma, the most he could put here would be 4 transport loads. I think it was a mistake. He actually left that guy down there. And these 2 guys, so he could put 10 guys here, but I've got my 6 infantry, a tank, and then 6 air, which I would attack into 10 infantry or 10 ground still. So I feel comfortable that he can't go to Burma. He could still come to 36 to help, defend these the next turn, but that would require him with this much strength of the UK, he'd have to bring everything down, the carrier, the cruiser, and with 2 bombers, that means he would not be able to protect 61, which means he could not have the transports just landing at 61 and be able to go back here. So the next turn, he'd have to go all the way to 62 to shuck people off the island. So the whole point of all of this is it's just here's how UK again can be just really a thorn from the UK twist, even going into a KGF. And depending on how he acts, this may turn into I might just turn this into a 2 ocean, type of thing. I could easily do that. I did put my 1 sub up here, so this is the weakness of Japan. He's got 1 destroyer. So I put 1 sub up here. I got 2 subs down here. I've even got this sub where he could kill it, but if he did, he'd be moving his fleet into my kill box again here. So he would have to sacrifice a destroyer. I will trade my sub for his 1 destroyer and leave me 2 subs on the map, because then Japan has to build destroyers when they're doing a KGF, and they don't want to do that. So, just an interesting little beginning twist to the KGF and the UK twist. I am starting to build these guys up, of course, just kind of traditionally. I'm still going to come to the med with these 3. I've got fighters in the region that could make 5. He's got 5 fighters, so I can still start my med shuck going. While still getting this up and running. So I got 2, 3 versus his 2 fighters. Even if he merges them, I'll be able to get another fighter onto here next turn, and I'll do 4 versus his 5 fighters, and I'm okay with that in a KGF. And or maybe, like I said, this might morph into a 2 ocean with UK continuing to build here and US builds a little bit more on this side, and Japan doesn't know how to respond to it. So just wanted to show this little interesting setup. And here's the, give you guys a little better picture of the whole situation with the UK setup and the Japan setup.